Welcome to Small Business Big Dreams, where every episode is a new journey into the world of entrepreneurs who are daring to dream big. In this corner of the internet, we're going to celebrate the innovation and the perseverance it takes to turn small ventures into booming successes. These small businesses aren't just places to shop, they're actually hubs of creativity and passion, each with its own amazing story. From the mom and pop shops to the innovative startups, we're going to explore it all. You'll meet the faces behind the brands, hear their stories, and maybe even get inspired to start your own venture. Whether you're a longtime local or new in town, come along with me for the ride and let's celebrate the backbone of our communities one small business at a time. Now let's dream big and spread some love for our local heroes. All right, welcome back to another week of Small Business Big Dreams. This week, we are going to kind of go down a similar road we did a few weeks ago. We kind of gave you guys some background into the world of accounting and tax paying and making sure to, keep your books in a line. But this week, we're going to talk about the other side of the business. We're going to talk about marketing and the importance of the brand and how do you get your name out there and different options you might have. So today, I get to sit down with Steve from Marketsparx. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about this. So you and I have at least similar background. We'll be at least playing the same space. So my day job's also in the digital marketing space, and I find this world very, very interesting and the transitions it's all had. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today. But before we dive into all of that, give us the elevator pitch. Who are you? Give us some credibility of why you get to sit down and talk with us today, and give us a little background on Marketsparx.
Sure. Marketsparx is a complete digital marketing firm. We do everything you would imagine a digital marketing firm does. So whether that's web development, web design, running ads on whatever platform makes the most sense for our businesses. So whether that's running Google ads, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we're doing some stuff. Amazon a little bit, LinkedIn certainly. And then we're really big in search engine optimization. So making sure your business is found on the search engines, near the top of the results. We have a really strong B2B LinkedIn business development program, which is not running ads. It's been a tremendously successful program for us. We have conversion rate optimization expert on our staff. Everybody thinks let's just have a great website and it's going to create sales for you, and it just doesn't work that way. And email marketing.
Email marketing. That's still a thing. I like that. It's like... people talk about, I think cold calling too is on the sales side of it. It's totally making a comeback, but
that's what we call our LinkedIn business development program. We call it cold calling 2.0.
Okay, cool. I like that. So how long have you been in the marketing space?
So personally, I've been in the digital marketing world for about 15 years, 16 years. So as long as anybody really can be, because that's about when it started. I came up through the IT ranks, transitioned into customer success and marketing, and really kind of fell in love with the marketing side of things. And then I launched Marketsparx 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Wow. Right before probably the greatest change in marketing I think we could have talked about in a long time at least, right? So talk to me, what made you make the leap from what sounds like more like corporate America, corporate marketing, into starting your own thing?
So I've owned a couple of businesses in the past, been fortunate enough to sell both of those. This is going way back when I had an IT consulting business. Throughout the whole Y2K fiasco, I grew very large and ended up selling that to a larger agency. And then I also had a golf internet business back in the day that we sold.
Golf internet?
Yeah, it was really... It was called golfprofinder.com. It was a way for you as an average golfer to find a pro anywhere in the country by your zip code. The PGA never had a directory, so we built it.
Oh, wow.
So cool. That was pretty neat.
So you're a big golfer too then, I'm guessing.
I am. Yeah. And then I worked for a couple of larger companies. So right out of college, I worked for a company for 7 years, got let go as part of what was known as Black Thursday back then. And then... So I was an independent consultant for a long time, and then that company approached me again about joining them. They head up an e-commerce division. I did. I spent another 7 years there and got let go again. Oh, so wow. Not many people could say they've been fired from the same company twice, but I have.
Laid off. Let's
Laid
say
off.
fired's
Yeah.
a little different, but definitely laid off.
Well,
Yeah, that's ouch.
The funny part of that was the second time I had been promoted 3 times in 4 years, and they let me go. So
Number on a sheet, man. That's corporate America for you.
And I made the decision that, I really liked working for myself. I'm not going to go work for a large company again. So I joined a couple of startups. Had an equity stake in one of them that grew very large and sold. So I cashed out on that. And then I decided I was just going to do some freelancing. Okay. So I wasn't even really setting out to start another company. But I went and spoke at a large conference, and that day we landed 10 clients. And I say we because it was me and my wife at the booth. That was it.
That was a hit.
Wow. And so I thought, well, I better start a company.
10 clients. I guess there's a company needed. Clients came before the business. Wow. So 6 years ago. All right. I always like to ask this question. Where does the name Marketsparx come from?
It's a thoughtful name. So we wanted to come up with something so that people knew something about the business just by the name. So market, obviously marketing. Mm-hmm. You could think stock market. You could think a lot of different things. And then the Sparks piece, my designer, Ashley, just started playing around with some names and logos, and we loved what she came up with Marketsparx, with the growing graphs, and we did the X instead of the K at the end, only because we could not get Marketsparx with a KS at the end domain name.
Oh, God, the domain name game. Yes.
So we did Marketsparx with an X.
So serial entrepreneur, you've done many businesses, very successful for yourself, it seems. But I want to hyper focus today just around Marketsparx. What, when starting it out, obviously you and your wife had a booth, you got 10 clients almost right off the bat, but what were some of the early challenges 6 years ago that you were facing?
I think hiring was the biggest challenge.
For your company?
For my company, because like I said, right out of the gate, we had all these clients and I didn't really have a business plan. I didn't have direction. It was just going to be kind of a team of freelancers. Ended up landing some larger opportunities, and it really made me sit down and say, okay, I need to make a hire for sure. Mm-hmm. Hired a gal from Google who has turned out to be one of the brightest digital marketers I've ever been associated with in my life. She's actually an equity stakeholder in the company now. But I would say hiring. I mean, getting clients, because we had such a little bit of a runway with those clients, and then getting some referrals very early on. I wouldn't say growing the business was the biggest challenge, but maintaining staff and getting the right people on board.
And how many people do you have today?
So today we're 12 people. Our shortest tenured person has been with us 2.5 years. So in the digital marketing world, that's very unusual, as you know.
Yes, very unusual.
I mean, we've got people who've been with us all 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, several 4 years. Been really blessed. I think everybody takes a vested interest in our clients. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think our client retention rate is also very high.
Now, let's talk about your clients for a little bit. Are you focused in a region? Are you national? Are your clients national? What kind of client base do you work with?
So I'll use this a little bit loosely, but we are worldwide.
Someone's got like a random office in like London or something?
Well, we actually have clients in 40-some states and 4 countries.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, worldly, global. I guess. What is that line? Like, it's like, I'm in 2 countries. That's world, right? It's like, why not?
I think it helps that Chelsea, who heads up our digital team, lives in Berlin, Germany. So
okay.
She lived in Toronto when I hired her. About 3 years ago, she moved out to Berlin, Germany. She had gone to school out there and loved it out there. And
so are you handling like international type of like marketing, or they're these companies, despite having like international presence, are still focused? Are you working with just the U.S. marketing arena, kind of sort of say?
Both.
Okay.
Primarily only in English language, though.
Okay. So that's something, and we were talking before the podcast. So I work in the day job, I work for a digital marketing company, and that is one of the hurdles within our business. So we have a North American presence, very heavily US and Canada and partially Mexico, where with our software is dealing actually with a currency exchange. And like, because we use what we call a demand side platform. It's a whole thing. Look it up. I'm not going to spend 30 minutes talking to you guys about it, but is like they want to buy it, but they're using euros, but we operate in US dollars. And then the transaction though is like within milliseconds. So it's like having a software that can do that is like complexity is unreal, but we'd love to. And then, GDPR, don't even get me started on the data protection.
Yeah. It's a much different game.
Totally. We have to we've actually even talked about how we might even have to build a totally separate thing just because the complications of GDPR. But
yeah. And just to expand a little bit, I mean, yes, we have clients in 4 countries. It's a client in each one of those 4 countries.
Hey, but, you're a global company.
For the most part, US and Canada based, and Mexico.
So let's say I'm sitting down with you and 2 of your biggest competitors. What differentiates you between your competition?
I think a couple of things. I think one of the things that really sets us apart is we don't make anybody sign a contract. Everything we do is on a month-to-month basis.
Wow.
That's very unique also in the digital marketing world. You know, most companies will make you sign a 6 or 12-month contract. I just don't believe in them. We're in a very measurable, performance-based industry. If we're not performing for a company, I don't see any reason that company should be locked into 6 or 12 months with us.
I love that.
The other thing is, when you get deeper into running campaigns and ads for companies, most digital marketing companies will not only charge you a management fee, but they'll charge percentage of ad spend.
Yep.
We don't charge percentage of ad spend.
Really? Gosh. Wow. You are absolutely opposite of a lot of things I've learned since I've gotten in the digital space.
One other thing I'll add to that I think the model we've put in place works. We have a 92% 36-month client retention rate.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. So if you're month to month, how long are they sticking around? So the proof's in the pudding there. If they're sticking around and they could walk away any minute.
And we're high touch. We meet with them monthly in formal reporting. We meet with them prior to their subsequent billing and give them a chance to stop. And, we've been blessed. They don't.
That's awesome. So when we have a lot of business owners that listen to the podcast, who's kind of like, I don't want to say ideal. I mean, obviously the guy's going to give you a blank check and say, go wild, is obviously an ideal customer, but are you working with like a one-man show? Are you targeting 50 to 100 people? Is it a revenue thing? How does that look like?
I think our sweet spot is in the, 1 to 10 million, because I think that those companies realize, A, they've got some money to spend, and B, they understand that if they want to grow the business, they need to spend some money. That being said, we have much larger clients. We have smaller clients. A lot of our clients are $500,000 a year in revenue, and we don't sell any out of the box solutions. Everything we do is a custom program, custom plan, based on research on the company, based on research on their competition, and we come up with something that typically will work with a client's budget.
So from the services offered, you talked about a lot of different things. Are they like a one-off, like, hey, you're just going to build my website and say, here, good luck? Or, is it more depending, again, it sounds very customized. Like we might have to partner together for 18 months to make sure, because I know some of these things like SEO, especially, that's not an overnight thing. That takes at least 3 months to really see significant change. So is that just depending on the plan we build out is working with you?
Yeah. I mean, we will often start with a website or a website redesign. If a company comes to us for a website design, the companies that have historically, we know that 90% of them are going to engage us for other services.
So that's usually where the conversation sounds like it usually starts around a website and then finds out that it's usually more than that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But we really do sit down with a company and, we want to understand their goals. We want to know, do you have a business plan? What does your growth plan look like? We want to help them achieve that growth.
Now, do you guys help with any of the actual, say, content creation or anything like that? Or is it more on the execution side of it?
A little bit of both. So we have writers that, particularly blog writer, 2 blog writers. actual product content, if somebody's got an e-commerce storefront, we actually have a partner company that we work with that specializes in that. But if we're doing social media management or running ads on social, we create all the content for that.
Oh, so I would give you my Instagram login, and you guys create the schedule, load it up, all that stuff.
And any assets that you have, we would utilize. But yeah, we will create the ads.
Love that. What's your favorite part to work on within digital marketing?
So I'm the only guy who does sales in the company. Okay. So I spend the majority of my time doing that. And then I also head up SEO. So, my favorite part is talking to people. I just want to know their story, know their problem, and see if we can maybe help them solve that problem.
Well, I got a whole laundry list of people that need help. So just keep following the podcast.
Yeah, right.
I love the people I've interviewed, but everyone's always got a pain point, and it's something either they kind of figured out one part, but they haven't gotten the other, and trying to mesh it all to one big glorious success. Or some people are just like, I don't get marketing, man. I make a killer brisket and my barbecue stand's awesome, but right. I don't know how to get it out there.
Well, I always say that, there's things that are really good to outsource. And I think digital marketing is a great thing to outsource, because if you were to hire one really good digital marketer, it's going to cost you probably $70 to $100K.
Easily.
You can hire a team of us for, about a fifth of that.
That's a sales pitch if I've ever heard one. Right there. Done. Mic drop. Walk out.
For me, it's like painting. I can't stand painting.
Okay.
I will outsource painting every single time.
I think I can paint every single time, and then I still have to hire somebody to come in and fix it.
My wife and I figured out there's two things we cannot do together: paint and play volleyball.
Volleyball, really?
She's very competitive in volleyball. So,
oh, I love that. That's. I feel like there's a story there for over another day. I want to talk about 2020. I know it's like beating a dead horse, right? But I saw a dramatic change or a dramatic push into digital marketing in 2020 because, no one could go anywhere. No one was doing anything. And the internet just went, it was already big, but it took it from an advertising perspective, it went off the charts. How did that impact your business, and what did you guys do to, did you change anything? Did you guys just get busier? What did that look like?
Yeah, 2020 and 2021, we experienced phenomenal growth. We added 4 people to our team. We were, through word of mouth and referrals, just getting inquiries daily. It was amazing. And we didn't do anything different. I spoke at a couple of virtual events, but I organically grew this business by traveling to conferences, speaking, and exhibiting. We really have scaled down from that now. I go to maybe 2 or 3 conferences a year. Obviously during COVID, there weren't conferences. So I did a couple of virtual conferences and certainly landed clients there. I think, too, what has really fueled our growth, COVID aside, is our referral program. So if a company hires us and they refer a client to us, the referring client can get up to $1,000 a month off their bill if the referred client signs up with us.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I love that. I think word of mouth is. So it's funny to kind of relate back again to the tax guy we had on Jared Smith. Referrals is so powerful in two aspects. Where am I spending my money? Right? Or what am I doing with my money? A tax guy, I want somebody who says speaks very highly of somebody, because that's my taxes, right? And then marketing, if I don't know anything about it and I'm going to give you a ton of my money to help me grow my brand or trust you with the image of my brand, I want somebody to be super hyped about you. And I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for you because you're getting a new client. It's, a relationship. Maybe there's some sort of B2B relationship with the referrer and the referee. And then, having that trust that all right, I know that company really well. They believe in you. Great. Now you're already starting on a warmer conversation. Then, I think it's just word of mouth is one of the most powerful marketing tools.
Yeah, and we were willing to do that because our client retention rate is so high. So it's really a
makes business sense.
yeah.
Yeah. What's some of the biggest changes you've seen within digital marketing?
The cost is going crazy. The cost to run ads on Google, the cost to run ads on Meta. LinkedIn has always been very expensive, particularly for cold outreach. We do a really good job at it, but honestly, we have a better program for LinkedIn. And I think the AI buzzword has created a lot of confusion. Oftentimes when we're meeting with a potential new client, I will get asked, how are you incorporating AI into what you're doing? And, what I really want to answer to that is, what do you care? We're going to drive business for you. What do you care whether, you won't know whether we're using AI or not.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
We do use it in blog writing. We do use it to create ads sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's not AI per se, but it's using the ChatGPT engines and the Google version and, just to get ideas and spark, our creative minds. Yeah,
and I like the idea there, the sparking the creativity, because I use ChatGPT for a lot of different reasons. I use other AI, quote unquote, I'm putting up huge quotes of AI tools, but I usually use them as like a pivoting point. Like, all right, like I didn't even think of it coming at that way, and it almost like is having an employee without having an employee. For me, it was like, one, I know I'm a bad writer. First off, like, just from grammar and professionalism, I'm not a good writer. So great, ChatGPT, stick something out for me, and then let me tweak it to work for my voice, my brand, whatever whatever have you. Even from like here's a huge long thing, but it's got to be for social media. So shorten it up and make it sound good, stuff like that. Super little things, but I think AI is a big buzzword, and that's something I know we're going to want to talk about later, but Google AI, people. Maybe don't Google AI. The Google search engine, again, is a hot mess in itself. But AI is a long way to go to be truly what we want it to be, but it's got to start somewhere, right? Business owner. We always talk about this. We quit a 9-to-5 to work 24/7. We work crazy hours, crazy days. What do you do, or how do you handle, the work-life balance?
So our industry, I think, is a little bit different in the sense that, you sign a client and you're paid for that month for that client. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that, you don't got to continue to go out and get new clients, but except for the first week of the month, I've got a tremendous amount of flexibility in my schedule. It's only really limited by how many meetings I want to attend, how many in-person events I want to go to. But the first week of the month, we do formal reporting with our clients, and that's, it's a rough week for sure. And my kids are older, so, it's a little bit easier, I think, for me. Somebody with smaller children, I think, has to have a little more rigid schedule and kind of plan for it. Whereas if I'm sitting on my recliner at 8:00 with my laptop, it really doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And you don't have somebody, the toddler all up crawling on you,
right.
Or a 12-year-old that's got to be at soccer practice or anything like that. Has that changed, obviously, within the 6 years when you were first getting off the ground? Or is it still a lot of bootstrapping, a lot of, getting around?
I think that, I certainly worked harder on growing the business the first 4 years.
Okay.
Then I started meeting with a mentor that I have, and he was the person that really convinced me you need to bring on a COO or a fractional COO and kind of structure this business a little bit differently.
Okay.
Since I've done that, my next hire, I think, is going to be a VP of sales, so I can start working on the business and not in the business so much.
Yeah.
But I'm busy. And it's
just, yeah. I think too, you're one of the more mature companies we've had on the podcast as of recent, at least, where I think you've turned a corner that people are still haven't gotten to yet. We've talked to companies that are 6 months to a year old to, somebody's in a company that's been around for 15 years, but they're just, their growth is kind of at a certain point where it's still, not bringing in that, the CEO or a VP. But I think we all want to get to that point where, we can delegate, we can trust, I think is a huge word, to have somebody do it the way we want them to do it. And I met with another serial entrepreneur actually yesterday of all time. She was telling me too, where, corporate buzzword SOPs, it's like having those in place of like, this is our brand. This is how we do it. This is what we talk about. And then being able to step away and trust the keys to the car, sort of say. But you sound that you're much further along than most that I've at least recently talked to in that step of like having the business to a point where like you can balance it the way you want to, and bringing people into, some people just aren't even at a revenue standpoint to be hiring somebody yet. Right. And, people are still learning this, where they play within their business. Where's their business fall within? Oh my God, what am I like? The word I'm looking for. Everyone knows the word I'm looking for, so But anyway, was there anything you would have done differently in the last 6 years?
So again, I didn't set out to form a business. But what I wish I would have maybe done differently would put some of these policies and procedures and software in place to help me manage the business, because those first few years I was working, 80 hours a week, and realizing now that, geez, if I had a CRM system in place from day one, if I, wasn't managing everything by email and spreadsheets and
the Excel hell,
would have made life easier. I think that, I think that people need to figure out, do I have a hobby or do I have a job? Do I have a business?
Yes.
So, and what I mean by that is, you might be a solopreneur who has a few clients, and it's keeping you busy. Mm-hmm. But if you really want to turn that into a business, you have to do some planning. It's not going to just organically happen.
Yeah. Well, and then I think the other conversation I've had with a lot of people is are you selling a product or a service, or are you selling yourself? Because certain things just aren't scalable, right? Like we think about you. Like, let's say you were the digital marketing expert and everyone was buying into the company because of you. You only have so many hours in a day. You can only help so many people. But if you bring in people that are as smart or hopefully even smarter than you in the space,
they're all much smarter than me.
That makes then the business scalable, because then it's the service that you're providing. It's like I talked to, a baker, and she's so good at making cookies. Well, if you don't figure out how to make that replicable, like you will never scale, because you cannot there's only a limit of how many cookies you can make and how many hours in a day you can work. And I think that's a great thing, is like, is this a hobby or is this a business? And is it scalable? Is that even what you want to do too? Some people are just happy with, what it's at. Right. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. And I think that like talking about writing down a business plan, it sounds scary, but it's not that bad. And it's not even has to be a business plan. It's just like a goal. Like, what are the goals to the business? But,
right. And I think a huge piece of that is, what is the problem I'm solving?
Yeah.
And who am I solving it for? Is there a need?
If there's a need, that I think that is like the $1 million question, because it's like some people just enter like super saturated markets, and like then they wonder why it gets so hard. And it's like, well, what's different than you? Like whatever your X, Y, and Z versus their X, Y, and Z. And if you can't even tell me that, you're already like, you're behind. Like you need to take 2 steps back and like figure out like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? But anyway, we could soapbox this all day. Let's talk about advice. We're going to do it 2 different ways. What is one of the best pieces of advice you've ever received? And then on the other side, what would be a piece of advice you would want to give to either somebody thinking about starting a business or somebody who just started a business?
I think some of the best advice I've ever gotten is, it's 2 parts. It's don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to let go of some control.
Oh, I think the second one is one of the hardest.
It was very, very, very difficult. Did you want me to go deeper into
Yeah,
that?
go for it. Dig.
I don't know.
Open it up. It sounds like there's a story there,
Well, so,
or a thought at least.
in between working for a big company and working for myself, I worked for a pseudo startup. I was employee 30. When I left, I was employee 100 in less than 2 years. Like, phenomenal growth. They sold the business, but one of the founders of that company, 15 years younger than me, brilliant marketing mind, brilliant business mind. So I had the opportunity, to kind of learn from him those experimentation pieces, those alignment pieces, and how to really, be able to delegate. Even though he didn't probably want to delegate anything, he delegated everything. And he's still my mentor today. Like, I talk to him once a month.
Love that.
So I think I think it's really important that people work for a big company, work for a small company, and work for themselves, because that's where they're going to really find, what they're passionate about. And you had a second part to that question, which was, again,
if I was starting a business, or if I have started a business, or maybe I'm early on, like, what piece of advice? I mean, obviously that kind of goes hand in hand with what you talked about, but specifically to somebody who's brand new to the entrepreneur world.
Yeah, I think people really need to ask themselves the hard question. And that hard question is, is this a business? What makes it a business? Like I said earlier, what problem am I solving and who am I solving it for? And figure out, is there a need? Just because there's other companies doing it doesn't mean that what you've got is a solution.
Right. Or the other one I talk to a lot of people with is, who's your target market? I don't know. Whoever wants to buy. I'm like, okay. Okay. Yes, but no. So I know there's a lot of learning curves. And the biggest thing, I'm big on, like, don't be afraid. I was one. I was Mr. Corporate America. I wanted to climb the ladder. I wanted to, wanted to do all that. I did that space for a long time. Didn't like it. I actually went in kind of something like you did for a little bit, was the hyper startups. I was working like multiple times. I was employee number like single digit to like we got to 50 or 100, and then I would move on. And basically my job was to come in and help those companies do that and create a certain SOPs and processes on how to hire and all this. And then a couple times I've started working for myself. I've been in and out of that space multiple times, and I figured out a lot about myself as well as different parts of the business of what to do and what not to do. Like, and that's the biggest thing I always say, like, around advice: take it all, but take it with a grain of salt, because some things you're going to take in and you're not going to want to do it, or maybe that's just not right for you. Or to the part of creativity, maybe somebody thinks this, but like, great, I like that, but let's twist it a little bit. And some are just like that one quote that somebody hits you with, and it's like your motivator for the rest of your life too. So I think advice is huge. I think having a mentor, I think everybody we've had on this podcast, find a mentor. And it's okay too, if that first mentor, only gets you from A to B, find that next mentor that gets you from B to C. Whatever that goal is that you're trying to reach for, find somebody who's been there and done that. And I think that's huge as well. And don't be afraid to reach out. Like, I can't tell. I was afraid to reach out with people who are experts in my area and be like, I'm new to this, and think they don't want anything to do with me. And it usually turned out to be the total opposite, which was really cool. But again, I digress. But let's talk about, great. So we're about halfway through the show today. If somebody at this point wanted to get in touch with you or somebody at your company, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. They can hit our website. It's marketsparx.com, marketsparx.com. We've got several calls to action on the website, different ways you can even get on there and submit your business, and we'll do an assessment for free of your business. So if that's of interest to anybody, please feel free to do that. I'm pretty open and honest with people. 847-302-1900 is my cell. If anybody wants to run ideas past, or, I educate all day long. My approach to this is, I will teach people anything they want to know. I'm no expert, certainly, but I know enough about how to grow small businesses and mid-sized businesses. I'll educate all day. And if at the end of the day you choose not to hire us, that's okay. At least you come out better armed with some knowledge for your next conversation you're going to have.
I love that. And hot take putting the cell phone number out there too, man. Hopefully you don't get bombarded. But I know a lot of businesses, even if it's a one-time consulting, would just benefit greatly to, you turn into another 36-month client. I think that would be huge. Well, very cool, Steve. So what we're going to do is kind of change the pace here a little bit for the podcast. We are had a lot of questions submitted in around marketing. I kind of took the general vibe of a lot of these, and I think we had like 6 or 7 different themes to a lot of the, I would say, higher level ideas around marketing. Obviously, I didn't want to get too niche. Some of the questions were like hyper focused, and I'm like, well, call Steve, he'll walk through it with you. But that people had around marketing, and hopefully this kind of gives you guys listening a taste of what what Steve kind of knows and what the company can bring, and then maybe even just instill a deeper conversation around it. So we're just going to jump right into it. So first question on the board today: how do I create an effective marketing plan?
I would love to just give the answer that you outsource it, and I truly do believe that is the way to do that, because unless you've got marketing expertise either in-house or you yourself, you're not going to know how to go about putting together a marketing plan. So talk to companies that will share their knowledge with you and not charge you to do so.
And when you say talk to companies similar in my space, or just in any company would hopefully give me that.
No, marketing agencies.
Marketing agencies, yeah. Like your company.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not the hard selling company, right? Yeah. We don't chase sales. I truly want to educate. I'm super passionate about helping business owners.
What are kind of like a couple elements that go in? Like if I was even said the word marketing plan and I don't even know what goes into it, like what are a couple of the elements that, I need to look at if I'm even trying to think about a marketing plan?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few fundamental things you have to at least have an understanding of and have in place. Number one is, many people have not even claimed their Google business listing. They don't even know what that is. More than 60% of small business owners have not claimed their Google business listing.
That high?
Yep.
Oh my God.
And then they wonder why they're never showing up in Google search results. I mean,
because according to Google, you don't even exist.
Exactly. So that it's free to do.
Okay.
You go to business.google.com, put in all your information about your business. Google will ask you to verify. They'll send you a postcard that's got a 5-digit code on it. You put that in, you're now a legitimate business in Google's eyes. Your website, it's got to be well thought out, and making sure that in particular on the homepage, you're very clearly communicating who you are, what you do, what problem you solve, who you solve it for, and how people can contact you.
Is the domain as important as people make it out to be?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get a domain that is centered around keywords people are searching for, but there's all these domain squatters out there. Pretty much every domain everywhere you try to get, you're going to have a difficult time doing. But you can get creative. Okay. And some of these domain registration, but I guess that's another big piece of it, is before you go claim your Google My Business, set your business up and all those pieces. But there's even some of these domain registration places that'll give you lots of really good suggestions on alternate names.
Does like I'm kind of rabbit holing just out of more curiosity. Like, does like the .co or the .com or the .net, does that matter as much? Is there like a credibility issue if I'm a .net or a .ai or any of these?
So I think that there are certainly ones you should try to get if you can. So if you're a not-for-profit organization, get a .org. If you're ideally, you want to try to get a .com, because if people happen to see your name on printed material or come across your company name, inherently they're going to put that name .com, right? Yeah. But that being said, there is no limit to domain extensions now, so it's complicated for for a lot of people. Or
I always feel like if I see one I don't know, I always feel like it's a spam or like a scam site or something. Or I thought forever when .co became a thing, I thought people were like literally spelling it wrong. Like you forgot the M. Like no, we're .co. I'm like, oh boy, that's gonna be tough.
I originally thought it was a country. .de and there's all the different country ones.
Very cool. So obviously a lot of good information there. Talk to Steve and his company if you want to take it further. Let's talk about something I think a lot of people miss a lot. I think this is super important, and I love this question. How can I identify my target audience?
I think it really gets back to how do you define your business and what that problem is you're solving, and then who you're solving it for. So once you can answer the who you're solving it for, that's going to be your target audience, right? And whether, and maybe that's got multiple layers to it. Maybe as you start to peel that back a little bit, you find out that my target audience is really women who are 40 to 60 years old. Then you can figure out and do some querying. It's widely available information, and know that, well, that demographic is mostly on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're not on TikTok. They're not on, and then, everything starts. So 90% of all activity on a smartphone that is not clicking an app is a search. So
interesting. Okay.
You can't, I hear all these experts say that SEO is dead. SEO is not dead. No. But what you can do is you can figure out through some tools that I could guide people on as well, what queries are actually being searched for. So you should never ignore Google, but you do need to know, because I would say that everybody's audience is on Google, or believe it or not, Yahoo and Bing have 1 billion searches a day. But to figure out, if you can answer the who I solved this problem for, then you can help refine who that target audience is, and then you can get to where they might be hanging out.
So I have a two-part question on top, or I have a statement and a question I want to add to that. So let's say I have identified my target audience. Is someone like you and your company, can they help me like find out where those people are and how to target them then after that? Like I do want to go to, after women 40 to 60-year-old for my product, but I have no idea where they're at. Like, is that something you can help guide?
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about these platforms from an ad perspective is they do give you some pretty good options for targeting.
Okay.
So for example, Facebook, if I want to target, women who are 40 to 60 with an interest in health and wellness, in a geographic area, I can find them pretty easily.
Okay.
Now you're just hoping that they're going to click on your ad when you push an ad in front of them.
That's a whole nother different conversation.
Yeah, well, that's where something like, I think, retargeting comes into play, which maybe we'll get to that at some point.
The other thing I wanted, you briefly mentioned it, is, everyone talks about Google, but I've seen this in our company with a lot of data that Bing is just as far up there too. And people are like, Bing, really? It's like people don't realize. So depending again on your audience, but on their Windows computers, the default is, what is it called? Edge, Microsoft Edge now, and then Bing's the default. And people just, they use Googling as a verb versus actually going to Google. And they're like, you actually are searching through Bing. You know that, right? And most people either don't realize or just don't care. And they don't realize, I think companies are missing greatly on how to push themselves better on Bing. It's like, you're missing half the world's search engine up. It's like Google and Bing are something like, what is it, like 80% of all world searches happen through the two of them, or I think it's even higher than that now. But so think about Bing too when you're thinking about your search engine stuff. Yeah,
and along those lines, if you're going to go claim your business on Google, you need to do the same on Bing.
Yep. Do you have any easy pointers to improve my website's SEO?
So SEO is complicated, right?
Yeah. Easy, quote unquote. Yeah.
There's really two pieces to SEO. There's what's known as on-page SEO and off-page SEO. I think the easiest way to think about on-page SEO is, it's your content on the website. It's your website speed. It's how your website is tagged. So, and I don't want to get too technical here, but your your title tags and your H1 tags and your meta description tags all factor in. They're all ranking pieces to the search engine's algorithm. And then there's off-page SEO, which gets more into, if you think about like your popularity across the web, off-page SEO really is a reflection of your popularity on the web. So it's getting critical backlinks from reputable websites in Google's eyes, that companies that are willing to link back to you. And it's not as complicated to get these links as people think it is.
And when you're saying like links, like so something like ESPN.com writes an article and then there's a hyperlink back to my website in there.
Correct.
Something. Okay, cool.
I mean, there is way more that goes into to SEO,
but that's off page, that more that, backlink type stuff. But that's, I know, messy.
And if your business is, local, let's say you're in, Chicago, but you're really trying to attract the Milwaukee market, but your physical address is Chicago, Google is not going to show you when somebody searches for financial advisor Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. It's going to take much, much, much longer to rank for something like that. You might even have some of your advisors working in Milwaukee area, but Google's going to look to try to take care of your physical location and the people searching in that physical location.
Interesting. Yeah, and especially in a world where it's so virtual now too, like your company is based in Chicago, but you could help a client, anywhere in the world or anywhere in the country, depending on your business. Do you have any best practice recommendations for social media marketing?
So, I think first it's important to understand what we mean by that term. So, social media, let's use Facebook as an example. If you have your business page set up on Facebook and you do a post, that's known as an organic post. Let's say you have 1,000 followers there. Less than 3% of your followers are even going to see that in their Facebook feed.
That's ridiculous. That's
Facebook's way of saying you want to get this in front of more people, you need to pay and boost this post. So as far as best practices, whether it's organic posting or running ads, I would say, you got to create content that's engaging. And what do we mean by that? Content that makes people interact with the post. And I don't mean a like, because, 5 years ago, likes on Facebook meant a lot.
Yeah.
Today, they have dropped so far down in the weighting on Facebook. So the engagement you're really looking for is content. I'm sorry. Comments. Thank you. And shares. So how do you get around this, pathetic organic reach? You try to post engaging content, because the more that 3% of people engage with it, the more people of your organic followers will begin to see it. So, we always try to advise, it's not the funny cat meme picture, although those do like extraordinarily well. But it's, post, ask questions. I don't want to say, touch on controversial topics, but touch on topics that there will be debate about. Mm-hmm. And then invite every single one of your people that you're connected with on every social platform to follow your page.
Yeah. And I think that ask sometimes too is you have to do that the right way too, because if it comes off like used car salesman, man, it almost works the opposite. It's like it's brutal.
Our approach to social media is educate 90% of the time and sell 10% of the time.
I like that ratio. Yeah.
Just educate. Everybody's out there selling constantly, and
everything, everywhere.
Yeah, it just is not. I'm sure it works for some people. The other thing I would say is a business owner needs to figure out how to get comfortable in front of video.
Oh, video is king. Yeah, I know. And ironically, I know this podcast has no video, but the reason for that is just from lack of time to editing video and all of that, and loading video is just a whole nother beast. But is there and I'm asking this almost for myself because as I try to grow this podcast, does really I've read in multiple experts the conflict conflicting information, like how often I post, like, certain social media platforms I should be posting almost daily, some a couple times a day, some once a week's fine. Like, is there any truth to how that looks?
I think if you ask 100 different people, you'll get 100 different answers.
Yeah.
There are times that are more effective to post. Tuesday morning seems to be a very good time to post.
I'm taking notes.
Believe it or not, Friday morning.
Really?
And a lot of this applies to email marketing campaigns as well.
Maybe this is a deeper conversation, but is there a way to like not have my emails go to spam? Like, I'm sending the email to you, right? And more often than not, like, so I have a subscriber email for the podcast, and everyone tells me it goes to their spam. Like, is it the tool I'm using, or
Are
is
you
it
using like MailChimp or something? Or
it's built? I have a Squarespace site. It's like built in as part of their, like, I have an email campaign marketing thing in there.
Yeah, without digging in a little bit, I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, we'll talk more offline then.
You got to make sure that it's, the email address is DNS verified. And there's some, I'd have to ask my gal who does our email marketing.
See, and that's why you surround yourself with people who know more than you do.
That's right.
Who always preached? I think it was Steve Jobs who always said that. I always just hire smarter people than me to do the work.
Heck yeah.
All right, we got a couple more questions. Let's knock them out. What type of content should I create to engage my audience? Video.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of talked about that, right? Ask questions. It could be something as simple as, but not in a selling capacity. So let me see if I can think on the fly here. Maybe you're an accountant and you do a did you know, and did you knows I think are really interesting in a couple of perspectives because A, it's very informational. It's not salesy. And B, on the back end of that, did you know, you could ask them that question. How are you doing this? Right?
Yeah. Well, that's I kind of took a lesson of that, and it, kind of worked. Like I always try to do is like, what businesses would you recommend on the podcast? Put in the comments, it's like, or share this post, with businesses you think should be on the podcast, trying to get it out there. Or I've seen a lot too, those giveaways, like I have a love-hate with those things. Like people love winning stuff, but when I need to like tag 3 friends, share it to somebody, follow this, it's like, I get it. I know why you're doing it. Like I get the real purpose, but at the end of the day, I still have a chance of winning something. So it's like a catch-22.
I have my suspicions over whether or not social media will shut that down. So how you can't incent people for reviews?
Right.
I've read some things that maybe in the future you're not going to be able to incent financially or prize-wise or otherwise for people to do things.
Like, well, because I think that comes down to like we think about some of those bigger corporate giveaways. Like, there's no cost for entry. Like, isn't like a cost for entry still like I have to follow or like or comment? I don't know. It's like it's up for debate, right? And I think that's where the gray area comes in. But moving along, how do I develop a strong brand identity?
I think it goes back to, figuring out the business, what the business is all about, right? So are you saying after your business has been created and named?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're somewhat established. Let's make that a somewhat assumption.
Got it.
But I have no I have inconsistency in my brand identity.
Yeah. So, it's you've got to make sure the search engines know about you. We talked about that earlier. You have to run some brand awareness campaigns. And what I mean by that is get active on social, get consistent in your messaging, put together a calendar, make sure you internally really understand your brand before you try to communicate that brand presence to other people. Brand awareness is kind of a funny thing, right? Because it certainly doesn't come with any return on the investment. Right. So even if you're running ads, as opposed to just doing your own organic posts, you often don't get much return on that investment for brand awareness campaigns. but it's a piece of the funnel. So what we like to tell people is to create brand awareness is build a story in your messaging.
Okay.
So whether, post 1 is going to be this, post 3 is this, post 4, post 5, etc. Really start to tell your story and educate people, but don't make it about selling.
Interesting. And do you think having continuity in the type of, like, should there be a similar vibe or feel, like whether I'm doing it on TikTok, Instagram, Google, like all those ads kind of feel like they have to feel like they're all coming from the same company too, right? Or like, do I change it up for like who my customer is, or not my customer, but who my audience is on TikTok versus a Google ad versus a YouTube ad or anything like that? I'm kind of all over the place, but you know what? I get what I'm asking. I'm going to shut up and let you answer.
I do think that your content should be different on different platforms. Absolutely.
Okay.
But what I also think is if you know that you want to grow this into a brand and not just a side job that you have or a hobby that pays you, you really should hire a graphic designer and create a branding guide. And then that way, every bit of material you produce, whether it's your website, brochures, content on social media, it's all going to follow that brand guideline. But, a good graphic artist is really going to sit with you to help you define your brand.
Yeah, I think that branding guide's huge, because even using the same colors and, everyone, you all create a logo, but you also need like something, was it like 7 different versions of it for like different formatting purposes. So I think it's huge. Graphic designers are talking about, finding work. Well, businesses, you got to get out there. There's a reason they exist. But now, do you guys don't offer that service? Do you partner with anybody that like to work with?
Yeah, we've been partnered with a company for about 4 years, and we have given them probably a couple of dozen clients. They do amazing work. They're called Kurtz Graphics, Kurtz. They're out of Ohio. They really, really do nice work.
Beautiful. Love the plug. Now this one's my favorite because I love data. I'm a data freak. But what key metrics should I track to measure marketing success?
Well, I think it's going to vary by what marketing channels you're doing, certainly. So, as simple as your website, you need to make sure you've got Google Analytics installed. You need to make sure you've got Google Search Console installed. You want to figure out through those two things and Google Tag Manager if you happen to be running ads. They're really good at tracking all of the information. They're awful at presenting the information. We have tools that we sit on top of Google Analytics because it's just
their UI is just awful.
Awful. And Facebook's is worse, I think. The Facebook platform is
that
awful.
New Meta business page is just absolutely brutal.
Yeah, so we often, that was where I was going on that side is the Meta Ads Manager. That's where you're going to do all your tracking in there as well. But yeah, we often have to gain access to our clients' Facebook business account. And for them to grant us access, we had a situation last week where we walked 2 separate clients through it. And the instructions it was completely different how they had to grant us access. It's awful. But then there are some really good reporting tools on top of this. So each of the platforms that you might be running campaigns on will have its own reporting. Then there's a reporting tool we like a lot called Agency Analytics, which will allow you to pull in all of those metrics from those platforms.
Very cool. Out of my own curiosity, just for my purposes, let's say I had a very small ad budget. Where am I going to get my best bang for my buck?
Are you B2B or B2C?
B2C. Most of my listeners
are you selling
B2C.
Product or services?
I'm trying to think. Majority of let's say services.
So consumer, who are you selling to?
Oh man.
These are the questions. No, this is a good conversation because these are all the questions that a business owner needs to ask themselves.
Yeah, let's I gotta just make when you're asking you like who my target audience is.
Yeah,
is like
essentially.
All right, 25 to 45-year-old podcast listeners.
I would seriously consider advertising on Spotify.
Interesting. Okay.
Or YouTube.
Really, YouTube.
Mm-hmm. So YouTube's a very interesting animal. As many of you may or may not know, YouTube is owned by Google.
Yep.
It is not expensive to advertise on Google or on YouTube. So inserting your ad, for example, you've all watched a YouTube video and an ad pops up, or at the beginning an ad pops up and you can skip it. Not expensive to advertise. You've got to have good content. But if somebody clicks on your ad on YouTube, that has a very high conversion rate. Like there is high intent for them when they click on that ad. So you better make sure in your ad you've got a call to action or some way to capture their information. But so yes, if you want to advertise to podcasters, go where they're hanging out, right?
Yeah.
They're on Spotify, they're on Apple, whatever Apple's is, they're on, all these platforms, and you can advertise on all of them.
Yeah.
Spotify's interesting because I think something crazy like 99% of Spotify users have the free version because they're willing to listen to an ad in exchange for free music.
Well, and that's what we'll see, as Netflix starts to make this change and all these other ad-free platforms as they offer cheaper versions with the ads. I mean, people are like, yeah, 30-second ad, fine, whatever. I'll save my $5 a month or whatever it is. Right. But I'm a premium Spotify because I can't stand the ads.
I am too because I download it on airplanes.
Fair, yeah. And actually, it's something... I was just looking at it. 73% of my listeners actually do it through Spotify and then Apple Podcast, and then it's a significant drop off after that. But there's some podcast apps I've never even heard of. People are listening to this on.
Yeah.
But I have this up on YouTube, but since it's audio only, I guarantee I'm not getting much traction. Google or YouTube has like a podcast channel part, like it's for podcasters, but again, I no video, so I'm probably getting buried there, but I'm not worried about it. We're doing well on Spotify and Apple.
Good.
So well, very cool. I told you the hour was gonna fly by, but was there anything just about maybe your business or digital marketing in general you were hoping to cover today?
Yeah, I there was one area I didn't touch on that I do want to touch on, and it's called retargeting or remarketing. I want to explain because I think it's really important that people understand what this is. So first of all, there's several different ways you can retarget customers. My favorite way and my favorite part of all digital marketing is retargeting website visitors. So through technology, there is the ability to take all of your website visitors or a portion of your website visitors that accept a cookie. And these days, cookie acceptance, when you come across a website, it says accept, reject, whatever, go to settings. Well, if you don't put reject and you make them go to the settings, they're more likely to accept. So we've kind of experimented with that a little bit. But so of those that accept cookies, you can then retarget on other platforms. So what that means is, let's say that you were on my website and we wanted to retarget you. Next time you're on, we were going to retarget you on LinkedIn and Facebook. There's something called a Facebook Pixel, which is through your Facebook business page. It's a little snippet of code that gets installed on your website. And what that allows us to do is push an ad to you on Facebook the next time you're scrolling Facebook after you've been on our website. My absolute favorite. LinkedIn also has something called the Inside Tag Manager. So if you sell to other businesses or even consumers, you can do that same thing and push ads to people on that platform. I love retargeting. We didn't get into geofencing. We don't do that. Super complicated, very expensive.
Yeah, our company does do geofencing, and it's a nightmare. And unfortunately, there's a lot of interest around geofencing too, because at least through the businesses I talk to and I work with, because they're just so hyper local, right? And they want that geofencing, but again, that's one, very expensive, very complicated, and there's not a lot of things out there that do it well, but that's a whole nother conversation for a different day. Anything else, Steve? Anything else we didn't talk about?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk more about their business or their strategy, or from a marketing perspective. I'm not a business strategist per se. But I think the person who would want to talk to me is somebody who really is looking to grow a business.
And this more makes sense for, somewhat established businesses that are looking for some direction.
Not necessarily, because I think there's people who are just starting out who really do want to grow a business.
Yeah. And so, I guess if they got a product or service, if they figured out the problem they're trying to solve and who they're trying to get it to, I guess from there, it's just getting in front of them then, right? Yeah. Well, Steve, I appreciate your time today, all the knowledge. I hope all our listeners at least took something away from today. And Steve, what's your website again?
It's Marketsparx, Marketsparx.com.
And feel free to reach out to Steve. You guys want to take this a step further. It sounds like he's a pretty helpful guy. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's got a team that's got a lot of knowledge. And thank you again for tuning in on Small Business Big Dreams. And until next week, goodbye for now. And that wraps up another episode of Small Business Big Dreams. Thank you for joining us. Please support us and these incredible small businesses by sharing this podcast with friends, family, and on your social networks. Spreading the word not just helps us grow, but more importantly, supports the dreams of our local entrepreneurs. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. But if you have a small business we should hear about, reach out to us on social media or our website. We would love to hear from you. Until next week, I'm your host, Eric Bohl. Keep supporting small businesses, and goodbye for now.